Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. The United States has carried out airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, targeting Fordow, Natanz and Isfahan. President Donald Trump has announced the operation on Truth Social, calling it a, quote, spectacular military success. Trump said all US warplanes have safely exited Iranian airspace after destroying what he claimed were key nuclear sites, now completely obliterated. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth will brief reporters at 8 a.m. Eastern Time along General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who Trump praised for leading the strike. The president said he coordinated closely with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, calling it an unprecedented partnership. Netanyahu hailed the attack as a move that would change history. The United Nations has condemned the strikes.
Thank you very much.
Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned of a dangerous escalation and urged all sides to avoid a spiral of chaos. Iran's state media confirmed damage to its nuclear sites. Trump warned that if Iran doesn't choose peace, future strikes would be far greater and a lot easier. He described Iran as the #1 state sponsor of terror and a bully in the Middle East. US President Donald Trump addressed the nation earlier. This is what he had to say.
Thank you very much. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Meanwhile, this is what the Israeli Prime Minister had to say.
The might of the United States will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things. But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what no other country on earth could do. History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace. President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes peace. And tonight, President Trump and the United States acted with a lot of strength. President Trump, I thank you. The people of Israel thank you. The forces of civilization thank you. God bless America. God bless Israel. And may God bless our unshakable alliance, our unbreakable.
Well, that was the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responding to the news of Donald Trump's strikes. The US, if you're just joining us, the US has bombed Fordow and other nuclear sites in Iran with their B-2 bunker buster bombers. Joining us to discuss this is Rohan Gunaratne, who is an international affairs expert located in Singapore. Rohan, thank you very much for joining us. What's your immediate reaction to this news, and what can we expect are the possible outcomes of this direction made by the Trump administration on Iranian soil?
Israel is militarily very capable, but Israel could not complete the mission, meaning bombing the the deep infrastructure where the nuclear capabilities and the enrichment took place. And that is why the United States led the operation to destroy these 3 sites completely. Iran will retaliate because Iran is not willing to surrender. So it is very important for the countries in the Middle East to protect itself from Iranian action. United States has a very significant presence in the Middle East, but Iran has a very capable security and intelligence service called IRGC that is also sponsoring a number of terrorist groups. So Iran will respond to this threat by attacking Israel and may also attack US, their allies and their friends.
Rohan, we now enter a dawn of uncertainty in the Middle East. We've seen Donald Trump urge diplomacy. We've seen him urge peace. You've said that you don't think Iran is going to follow that playbook and respond with aggression. What exactly are the nuclear capabilities of Iran currently, and what risk do they have to players in the region?
As a power that was developing a functional nuclear weapon, that capability has now been eroded, but Iran will try its best to restore these capabilities. Any power that is determined to rebuild their nuclear capabilities will achieve so unless there is regime change. So Israel's game plan and the game plan of the US and some Western countries is to ensure that the current regime, the Ayatollah regime, is ousted, that it is no longer an Islamic Republic of Iran, but an Iran that will not engage in terrorism, Iran that will not manufacture nuclear weapons. So in many ways, there'll be a new Middle East in the coming weeks and coming months. The United States will attack Iran again. Israel will attack Iran again.
Rohan, let's weigh out some of the risks and possibilities here. We've already seen some opposition to these strikes. Now there was opposition brewing before that, but now we've had the UN, for example, the Secretary General Antonio Guterres calling this a dangerous escalation with dangers of it destabilizing the region. What kind of action do you think we can see both from Israel and Iran at this point? What can Iran do against the US? We've seen possibilities of Iran maybe striking their nuclear sites, their military bases. What are your thoughts?
Certainly, America has a very big presence, a robust presence in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in UAE, in Kuwait, in Bahrain. So, and those sites will come under pressure. America has a very big diplomatic presence in the Middle East. Those targets may be attacked. But what is most important is that Iran will also strike inside the United States. These are the worst case scenarios. But of course, the US and the Western nations will strike Iran. Now the time has come to dismantle the regime in Tehran, and that is the next phase of action on the part of Western nations. They may not say it, but they are all supporting Israel to ensure that there is regime change.
Rohan, for those viewers who don't know, could you explain a little bit about the regime in Iran, their past actions, their mentality? What will they be feeling waking up to this news and seeing the damage that the Americans have caused on their soil? Their prime nuclear base Fordow, which was heavily guarded, heavily defended, nearly 80 meters down in the ground. Supposedly that's been, quote, absolutely obliterated by Donald Trump. As I said previously, if you could give us a bit of a background on how the Iranian regime, the Ayatollah regime, will be reacting to this, what they'll be thinking now.
Fordow is Iran's premier nuclear facility where they had enrichment of uranium to produce the nuclear weapon, but only its upper portion was successfully attacked by Israel. They did not have the capabilities to attack the lower part, the second part of that facility, and that is why the B-2 bombers took part in that attack, and it has been very successful. But what is important is that Iran has both conventional military capabilities and also unconventional military capabilities, meaning that they will resort to terrorism as they have been doing in the past. For example, the worst attack the United States suffered, United States military suffered from terrorism remains the Lebanese Hezbollah attack in '83, which was Iran sponsored. The US has never forgotten that. Trump in his speech said very clearly that Iran is the #1 sponsor of terrorism in the world. He's right. In fact, there were 2 plots to assassinate Trump. The latest plot was by Iranian agent called Farhad Shakiri. He recruited Americans to kill Trump. But what is important for all of us to understand is that the world has patiently waited since 1979, the Iranian Revolution, for Iran to become a state that is acceptable to the international community. However, Iran has planned and prepared attacks around the world by funding a number of proxy groups, including the Lebanese Hezbollah, including the Yemeni Ansarullah, known as the Houthi movement, and even groups in Afghanistan and in Pakistan, Shia groups. But most recently, Iran also hosted the Al-Qaeda leader, Saif al-Adel, who is now living in Iran. So what is important is that Iran, the new Iran, we hope will move away from terrorism and will no longer engage in such operations. This is the price of terrorism. Any state engages in terrorism, they have to pay a very heavy price.
Rohan, do you think Donald Trump wants to topple this regime like Netanyahu has been very, very vocal about? We saw the news come out a couple of days ago that Donald Trump actually vetoed a plan to assassinate Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei. Now we've seen that the Ayatollah has named his successors on his fort, just in case that does happen. So, do you think Donald Trump wants to get rid of this regime, or now will he be happy that Iran's nuclear capabilities are now destroyed?
You are very correct. In fact, Trump himself is very concerned and very cautious of United States' next steps, because US is aware of the Iranian threat, especially the threat of terrorism. But at the same time, in his heart, he has worked very closely with Israel. It's more a joint operation that we witnessed in Iran. So both the West and, of course, Israel will work to ensure that the Ayatollah regime is replaced, because that regime will never bring any good to Iran. Iran was a very beautiful country before the 1979 revolution, where in December the Ayatollah came to power. And since then, we have seen that Iran has built a very capable IRGC, which is an intelligence service that is sponsoring terrorism, and that is a military that has also built their nuclear and the missile arsenal. So I believe that today there is consensus among the security and intelligence, the global security and intelligence services, that there should be a change in Iran.
Yes, and Rohan, how do you think the international community is going to react to this? We've seen a lot of international diplomats, foreign ministers say that back the idea that Iran shouldn't have a nuclear weapon. However, now that America has taken this action and possibility of escalation in the region, how do you think international governments and also agencies are going to react to the possibility of further escalation in this war?
China and Russia will support Iran. So will a number of other countries. But the West, especially the United States, UK, they will support Israel. So in the coming days, even in the next few hours, we will see continuity of Israeli attacks on Iranian attempts to restore its air defenses that other countries will try to help them to build. Its nuclear sites, including nuclear development, that they will try to restore, the missile and the drone strikes, and of course its military industrial complex, and of course the IRGC high-ranking commanders and the nuclear scientists will be continuously targeted by Israel. But what is important for us to understand is that the next phase of Israeli operations will be against the political leaderships, the Ayatollah that rules Iran, so that there will be a regime change. Many expect that the Iranian opposition, both within Iran and outside, will now exercise agency and replace the existing regime.
Rohan Gunaratne, thank you very, very much for joining us on the program. We're now joined by Martin Sarayz, who's an international affairs expert, and he joins us from Quito, Ecuador. Martin, thank you very much for joining us. Can I get your immediate reaction, please, to this news that we saw this morning, that the United States has indeed launched action directly in Iran on their nuclear bases that they possibly said that they were going to take 2 weeks to decide on. However, that decision came a lot sooner than expected. This morning, we saw Fordow, the main nuclear site, and 2 other bases bombed with B-2 Buster bomber explosives. Donald Trump says these have been completely obliterated. What are your thoughts? What's your immediate reaction?
I think this was a genius action. The U.S. Joining the IDF, the U.S. and Israel has been applied a perfect plan for the annihilation of this kind of threat. It was unexpected, and it was supposedly to be unexpected. They did all of these efforts to make Iran think they were not going to strike Iran, and it was perfectly done. I think it's just one of the best operations of the decade, and this is gonna make the world a better place from now on. Israel has been sponsoring terror throughout the world, throughout the Middle East, and this is a milestone.
Yes, and Martin, critics would say that there's a possibility that this would cause escalation in the region. Donald Trump has obviously called for peace. However, how realistic do you think is that statement, that Iran is going to go through peace via diplomacy?
First of all, I think it was absolutely planned years ago, and I don't think this is going to be a cause of an escalation. Why? Because Iran is already broken. Their economy is absolutely broken. The regime is about to fall. People are eager to take down this regime. The regime is absolutely devastated. They don't have the economical power or the military power to give a response. Basically, the only thing that they had to offer for scaring Israel was the nuclear weapons that are completely destroyed by now. So I think they don't have anything to, they don't have any kind of way to react or to retaliate any reaction from Israel. They are done.
Martin, Iran still obviously have military capabilities. Do you believe that they will act further upon Israel and possibly, like they said that they have the capability of doing, United States military bases in the region?
True, Iran still has ballistic missiles, but these missiles are not enough to overwhelm the Iron Dome from Israel. So I think they will keep shooting their ballistic missiles. They will cause harm to Israel, but this harm is not going to be enough to cause a devastation to Israel. The only threat that Israel had was the nuclear weapons. And now that they are destroyed, Israel has nothing to worry. True, ballistic missiles can kill people, can actually damage cities, but not in a huge scale. So I think Israel is in a strong position right now, and absolutely Iran is absolutely destroyed. And we hope that in the next months, the U.S., with the cooperation with Israel and the people of Iran, they can overthrow this regime and give democracy to Iran.
Thank you, Martin. You are staying with us. If you've just joined us, viewers, the US has just bombed the Fordow nuclear site in Iran, along with 2 others. Donald Trump has just addressed the American public and the world and warned that Iran must make peace or future attacks will be far greater. He has also just posted on Truth Social as we speak right now, saying any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight. This obviously comes as Iran has threatened military action against bases in the Middle East region if the United States did take action, which it obviously now has. So Donald Trump called the strikes on Fordow and the other 2 nuclear sites a spectacular military success. Martin Sarayz joins us once again to discuss this. Martin, what implications will this have on the region of the Middle East if what Donald Trump says is true and these nuclear sites have been completely obliterated?
This is a historic day. This day will mark a new beginning for the history of the Middle East. This is absolutely a change in the geopolitics of the Middle East. We need to know that Iran has been sponsoring a lot of terror organizations that have been destabilizing the region. Now, these organizations are going to be absolutely shooting down, and basically the Iranian regime was the head of the snake. Without Iran, these threats are no longer threats to the Middle East. So this can build a way for the Middle Eastern societies to build a democracy. The Iranian people are actually asking for democracy. There's a radical minority that supports the regime, but everyone knows that the regular Iranian wants to live in peace, wants democracy, wants to live in a normal country where they can live with human rights. So this is going to be the beginning of something wonderful in the Middle East. The US has a huge leadership on this by supporting any kind of initiative by the people to overthrow this terror regime. So I think now that these regimes do not have more bellic power, they are going to be shooted down.
Okay, Martin, do you think that the US still supports this regime change in Iran? You think Donald Trump will go as far as to support Israel in its mission to topple the Ayatollah and his ruling of Iran? There is obviously historical things we can cite when a regime has been toppled like this. For example, Colonel Gaddafi in Libya, that left a vacuum. is there not only serious risks to what you say, this being a new dawn in the Middle East for just the region, but the possibility of also international partners getting involved in this as well?
It's going to support the Iranian monarchy to rebuild their country. Actually, the Pahlavi prince has already said that he has a 10-day plan with the help, of course, of the people of Iran to give back Iran democracy. The question is, how is this going to be implemented and executed? We don't know for sure. These are top secret movements. We hope Donald Trump will support this idea, because this Ayatollah regime, they don't have any future. They don't have the support of their own people. They don't have the military power that they had. They are absolutely dying. So it's just about time.
Okay, and what about alliances? We've seen the Russian President Vladimir Putin speak out against the regime toppling in Iran. We obviously know that the United States and Israel have their alliances in the West. What are your thoughts that if this situation does escalate, even more international communities will be involved in a war like this?
Of course, Russia is not interested in overthrowing the Iranian regime because it's their strategic partner in the region. But this is not an enough reason to start a war with the United States. I don't think Russia is gonna start any war just because the regime is gonna fall. One example is the fall of the Assad regime. The rebels took over, and it's well known that the rebels had the support, either logistically or with intelligence, from the US. The US was involved, and Russia didn't do anything. Russia has not the capability to fight the US right now, and they're not going to do anything. So I think, of course, in a diplomatic level, they will always fight for the survival of the Iranian regime, but in force and bellic terms, they're not going to do anything.
Yes, apologies. So what are your thoughts on how this might move in the future, Martin? Do you think we'll see direct US involvement further? Donald Trump says he only wants to remove Iran's nuclear capabilities. He's now done that. If what he says is true, Iran has acknowledged that. What happens now moving forward?
You need to understand something, Joshua. The United States will never do such a huge military operation without their interest. They're not going to waste their money, their efforts in something that is not going to change. If the United States decided to eliminate the nuclear facilities, is because they have a huge plan to change the regime in Iran. They're not going to start something and then not finishing it and leaving it in the middle of the way. They're going to finish their job. And knowing Donald Trump's behavior and its background and all of what he has been doing, we're talking about a man that does what he promises. He promises, he promised he will take over this regime. He will do it. The question now is how long it's going to take and how it is going to be executed. It can take weeks, months, even years. We don't know, but the United States is not going to let this initiative in the middle of the way and not finishing their job.
But Martin, Donald Trump has said that he literally vetoed a plan to assassinate the Ayatollah Khamenei, which Israel wanted. Hasn't Donald Trump already finished his job in destroying Iran's nuclear capabilities?
Obviously, the United States is not gonna go directly and kill directly this leader that has been an historical leader. The United States is not gonna do it directly, but of course they're gonna support it in an indirect way. Israel, on the other hand, is the executor and is the country that does everything in a direct way, because Israel has been threatened directly by Iran in its elimination. So I think the United States will not directly overthrow this regime, but they will be absolutely involved in the development of this movement of replacing the current regime. My thoughts are that the United States is not gonna let this war. I mean, the United States is not done by now. They need to keep supporting Israel, and the war between Israel and Iran will continue for months. It's not gonna be over right now.
As we are seeing, there has been world leaders' reactions pour into this. Venezuela's foreign minister has condemned US military aggression, along with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who has also released a statement. He said he's gravely alarmed by the use of force by the United States against Iran today. This is a dangerous escalation in a region already on the edge, and a direct threat to international peace and security. We have a statement from the Venezuelan foreign minister saying Venezuela condemns US military aggression against Iran and demands an immediate cessation of hostilities. We have the Mexican foreign ministry on X saying that they urgently called for diplomatic dialogue for peace between the parties involved in the Middle East conflict. And we also, finally, we have the Cuban president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, saying that we strongly condemn the US bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities. We now have some breaking news coming in too. A senior Houthi official has issued a direct warning to US President Donald Trump, saying he, quote, must bear the consequences for the US strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. This statement was posted on social media by Houthi political bureau member Nizam al-Assad. Martin, I want to come back to you now to just talk about the regional implications of this before we go wider. Iran obviously have some known proxy groups in the region, including Hezbollah, including Hamas, including the Houthis, who we've just heard from. Does this type of language signal the possibility of action against the United States from these proxy groups?
First of all, relating to the international diplomatic crisis, you need to focus on what kind of countries are supporting Iran. All of these countries are not democracies. Cuba, Venezuela, they are the same regime that is ruling Iran. They are dictatorships, they're not democracies, and their role in the world affairs are minimal. So if we're talking about an international crisis in diplomacy, these countries are irrelevant. Regarding the second question, I think these proxies are weak. These proxies have no power whatsoever to start a war against the United States. This is a joke. I mean, they're absolutely weakened, and Iran has no ability to keep sponsoring these terror organizations because their economy is about to collapse. And with the damage that the Israeli strikes and the American strikes have been performing in the Iranian facilities and infrastructure, Iran has a lot of years to have to recover from this harm. So Iran is going to fall economically, and the only way that the Iranians can keep their lives and keep their interests is to change the regime. That's the only way.
Thank you very much, Martin Sarayz, for joining us on the program. Well, that is all that we have time for, and we will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. And of course, this developing situation in the Middle East. Thank you very much for joining us.